Well, welcome, Lisa, to the Leaders Who Care series. I know for a fact, no pressure, that you're going to prove to everybody why you really are one of the leaders who care. So welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you here. And I think you're doing some amazing stuff, and I want to get right to it so people know how you're going to make everybody healthier and happier and everything in between. Um, so can you briefly introduce yourself, not the business part or anything like that yet, but who's Lisa, where you're from originally, where you are now, what family, favorite color if you want, maybe something you've never told anybody you want to reveal now to the world, stuff like that.
Very fun. Yeah, I born and raised in Alameda, California, and now I live a whole 20 minutes from my parents in Oakland, California. So I have explored the world in a lot of ways, but come back very close to home.
Nice.
And I have been married for 7 years and have two kids. So keep us on our toes. We've got a 1-year-old and a 3.5-year-old.
Wow.
So you
Cool.
hear screaming in the background. My mother actually watches our son at our house during the day, which is amazing. So grandma and little guy are just constantly roaming all over the place.
Well, 1 and 3, boy, girl, boys, what do you have?
Got our girl is the toddler and our little boy is the 1-year-old.
Awesome. You know what blue zones are?
I do.
Thought you would.
Yeah.
One of the elements of blue zones is how valuable it is if the grandparent is either living or with the kids a lot, not just because of extra help, but because of everything that happens with that. So it's quite something, and it makes sense if you think about it. So that is super cool that she does that, and she probably for the most part loves doing it. So,
Yes, I mean, she says it keeps her young.
no, I'm sure. And she sleeps well when she goes home.
Oh, totally. She also loves handing them back at the end of the day, that's
Oh,
for
right.
sure.
Well, I have 3 boys and a daughter-in-law, and she's my favorite by far. And and they're older now, but and we all hear this, but so cherish the moments because again, it literally doesn't fly by anymore. It literally zooms by now, to use current language and stuff. So yeah, enjoy every minute. So speaking of the kids, what were you like as a little kid or a teenager? Were you a girly girl? Were you a hiking tomboy? Did you play sports, music? What did you do? What were you like?
Yeah, I think I was often described as a little spitfire. I had a lot of opinions as a child, which no surprise, our daughter also has a lot of opinions.
Well, you can't blame her then.
I yeah, she gets comes by it naturally, that's for sure. Try to remind myself of that. But yeah, I did a lot of sports, all soccer, cross country, kind of everything. Um, also did a lot of community service. That was a big part of my family's value. My mom is a church deacon. She organizes
Wow.
community service activities for the church, so got us involved very early on. And I think I credit her a lot with my inspiration of wanting to be of service in whatever way I could.
That's awesome. So there wasn't any cancellation of dances or stuff like that, like the movies, right? Um,
No, no.
it was the promotion of dancing and happy and all that. Not bad.
Yeah.
Cool. And did you read a lot? Did you watch movies?
Yeah, I grew up in an interesting house that I absolutely hated. Our dad was very anti TV, so we never had cable. So we'd go to school and hear about all the great things on MTV, and we're like, "What's MTV?" And it felt very hard as a kid. We weren't allowed to watch TV during the week, just like a little bit on the weekends. And now I'm firmly committed to doing the exact same thing for my children. So
No,
we do
jeez.
as little screens as possible because it made me into a voracious reader, and my sisters as well. So I think there's something to be said for getting out of the screens, off the phones, off the TVs, and just made to do other things.
Yeah, it's so true. For mental health and everything that goes along with it. And I even saw a thing with they had a baby, well, not a baby, let's say a 1 year old, 1.5 year old. They gave the baby the book, and the baby was sliding like this, like you would a tablet or something to move it. It was
Oh
like, oh my
man,
gosh.
yeah,
I mean,
wild.
that's like training a robot almost,
Yeah,
you know,
totally. I know it is crazy.
because you will. You know, one thing parents did teach us is everything in moderation. So I guess a little TV's okay and
Yeah,
whatnot. So make sure that your son watches hockey games. That's the best stuff to watch. Um, said a Montrealer from Canada. So,
fair.
you know, well, tell us about your journey then, you know, starting with education. What intrigued you to take the path of you had politics and environmental studies?
Yeah. I actually worked for my local congresswoman when I was in high school, which was a really cool introduction to politics. And thought it was just so interesting how, you can make laws or make policies that have a huge impact on people's lives. And then at the same time, I think growing up in the Bay Area, just always very interested in the environment, and climate change scares the bejesus out of me. And so thinking about, like, how do I study both of those things? How do you use policy to create social and environmental change? And so that's kind of where the politics and the environmental studies angles came from.
Yeah, that makes sense. You ever see the movie Don't Look Up?
I haven't.
Yeah, it's when it started out, it was with Jennifer Lawrence and some major stars in it.
I
And
think I've heard of it. Yeah.
yeah, it's pretty good. It's a satire, if you will, on, without going too much, this massive android is going to hit, or asteroid is going to hit Earth, and this is urgent. And they go to the president, and she says, "Well, I got meetings right now, and I got to worry about polls. Get back to me in 3 weeks." And they're saying it's coming. So it was like a satire on this is urgent type of deal. And well, I think you'll like it. Watch it, but if you watch it, stay through the credits, because some of the best part is right at the end with the credits. So
Okay.
that's my
Worth
recommendation.
it.
It sends a message about how urgent climate change is in a good way, or in a funny way. So, you know, our firm, we founded Fifth Element on the basis that leaders of any types of organizations can always do way better when they're doing good. And it clearly looks like you were an early leader, thanks to not watching television and understanding this, basically. And gaining a whole bunch of exciting experiences. We were talking a little bit from Kenya to the White House, from, I got to read them, I can't even remember them all, from the UN to Whitman College, the Peace Corps to India, and other, you know, amazing board roles. And certainly there's a thread in there that's showing, I think you are a leader who cares, obviously, in that whole thing. How did these happen, and how great was it all?
Well, it's a lot of different things, but I would say the short version is one of the politics classes I took was the Politics in Africa course, and it made me think a lot about, like, how we just see such a jaded perspective of the African continent. You see, like, there's starvation happening, there's refugee conflict, there's, whatever, and it's all kind of paint this whole continent with one very singular brush. And so was very determined post graduation to go and study and live somewhere in the African continent. So that's where I joined the Peace Corps after college. And actually, before that, one of the summers when I was in college, I worked in the Obama White House, which was really cool. It was the first summer he was elected. I ended up meeting my husband there. So we are
Oh,
big Obama fans in this house. And
was he at the wedding?
we invited him. He didn't show up,
I
but we got a nice letter in
was going to say,
response.
did you get a gift at least?
Yeah, I got a little congratulations type
That's
thing,
good.
which is, sent by some intern sitting in the correspondence office. So
Don't think
we're
about
fine
that.
with it.
Yeah,
We're good
don't.
with it. Yeah. Don't think about it too hard. But yeah, and then I had this incredible experience while in the Peace Corps working with this superfood Moringa, which, you asked me about my background. Well, in my food forest, that's Moringa. And I'm a vegetarian, was in a very rural village. I found that I was feeling really weak and really tired eating just rice all day. So I asked some of the women in my village's health center, what can I eat that will give me more energy? And they literally pulled these leaves, moringa leaves off the tree, handed it to me and said, eat this. And they put it into a local snack called kuli kuli. So that's where our name comes from, inspired by that. And it really had a profound impact on my body and my health. And I was like, wow, what is this plant? So I started to do some research, realized it's incredibly nutritious, and it inspired me to want to partner with them to grow more of it and sell more of it. And they really wanted a way to sell it in the US. So fast forward, that's how I started Guli Guli.
Wow, that's pretty cool. So you didn't go, were you you said you were a vegetarian? Is that what you said? Were you a
Yes.
vegetarian when you went there?
Yes, I've been a vegetarian, pescatarian, ate some fish since I was 12. So most of my life.
Oh, that's fascinating because my two and a half of my sons are vegan, but they weren't before, and I wasn't. And you grew up on meat and potatoes, but really quick, I stopped eating meat a long time ago because when I played hockey, I felt it was slowing me down, like psychologically and physically.
Mm,
So I just didn't.
yeah.
But I didn't know enough about the healthy part of all that, just how I felt. But then I'm not vegan yet, but I mean, some of the food that they've shown me to eat and whatnot is spectacular, and really good. So, and I just eat a little bit of fish sometimes too. So that's cool. So, um, things happen for a reason. It's kind of interesting that they would just take that leaf, give it to you, and bam, it leads to a whole bunch of stuff like that. Because you were there just to learn and experience and whatever, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the Peace Corps is really about like cross-cultural understanding and then also, you know, providing support and when and where you can. And I think for them, it was very clear that, they wanted to grow more moringa. It's a really easy crop to grow. It's like grows like a weed. You just throw the seeds in the ground and you'll get a 20-foot tall tree in like literally less than a year. It grows super fast. And yet they didn't have much of a market for it. And so that's where they really asked me, can you help us create a market? And I was 23. I had no idea what I was signing up for. It's like, sure, no problem. I'll help you create a market for Moringa. And, here I am still doing it. It's been a wild ride.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And I don't want to come back to Kuli Kuli because I want people to know more about it. I want to interject a question though. You went to all these places as a young woman, and our firm was actually launched on International Women's Day. We've done a lot with women
Mhm.
leadership and whatnot. And I actually think it's going to be up to the women and even the moms to make things better. That's another whole series interview, basically. As a woman, can you describe your journey in all these places as a woman, how you navigated, how you thrived? Was it hard or for you, what kind of obstacles were there? How did you feel?
Yeah, I mean, so in like the different countries or in the different jobs or all of the above.
All of the above, that time.
All the above. Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, from very different by country, certainly, living in the US, I think as a woman, you have a lot more freedom than a lot of other countries. Living in New Delhi, India, which is where I work for an impact investment firm, it was really restricted in terms of, really highly recommended that women not go out at night by themselves. Like I had to have a guy friend come in the little tuk-tuk home with me. It was pretty dangerous at the time for women, and that was interesting. And then while I was in Niger, Niger is a really Muslim country, so that was really fascinating too. I actually covered my hair every day, and wore much very conservative clothes. It's also a polygamous country, so you find men who can afford it have three wives, two, three wives, which was fascinating to say the least.
Yeah, that's an interesting way of describing
Yeah,
it. Yeah.
it was very, very interesting. But and I think being starting a business as a young woman, there were a lot of folks who kind of gave me a little bit of like pat on the shoulder. That's a little girl, like that's a cool project. And I'm like, this isn't a project. This is a business, and I'm going to grow this, and I'm going to scale this. And I'm like, sure. So I think that there was a lot of doubt, especially when it came to fundraising and trying to convince investors this was a real credible business. So just had to kind of like prove myself step by step.
In a way, I've had women saying, in a way, it kind of forced them to almost do way better than maybe they would have, if you will, because it's
Yeah.
you had to prove it and stuff. And I know India also instituted some laws against how men treat women, but it's still hard. It's still hard, over there in that respect, getting the respect and stuff like that. Did you find, in your journey as you're getting this, as you were traveling and then as you're getting started in your business, by the way, that pat on the back of the head must have been like, really? I can't even imagine what you're saying to yourself in that respect. But in a world of public-private partnerships and funding and stuff like that, how did you find yourself, making those happen and taking yourself seriously, for that matter, and getting the deals?
I think it goes back to a little bit of what you said of, the sort of pressure to be twice as good. And something that I think women face, I think a lot of people of color face. And I think there was also an element for me of, you know, figuring out really quickly, like this wasn't going to work if I wasn't just going in there full of confidence, bragging about every single accomplishment and selling that to the world and really being, what my mind felt like a little bit ostentatious of everyone I met, like at all of the networking events, talking to them about what we were trying to build, the traction we were seeing in Whole Foods, how we were getting all this press, how like all these great things were happening, and really trying to tell that story in a way that people could feel the excitement that I had. And so it came together slowly. Our first fundraise was 43 different angel investors. I raised $500,000 from 43 angel investors. Let me tell you the number of conversations that took.
Oh
But
man.
yeah, it was wild. But got easier from there. And then, we did Series A and a Series B, and I've raised about 12 million in total. And it gets easier every time as we consistently prove that yes, we are performing. Yes, we can do this. Yes, this is a real business. Yes, we are scaling.
That's quite a cap table, 43.
Yes, it is.
Now, could you turn them all into business development and sales people?
Yeah, well, that's how I think about it, and it's actually a very apropos conversation. I just sent out my investor update earlier today, Q1 update. I feel like because we have so many investors who we now have over 50 people on our cap table, really trying to see them as an asset, not a liability, and keeping them updated. And every single investor update I send out both a here's what's going well, here's what the challengers are, here's how you can help. And always just giving like a few small things, like maybe it's today it was like we've launched 2 new products on Amazon and would love folks to try it and leave reviews. And we also just launched a loan on Kiva, and if you're open to giving us a 0 interest loan, we'd love that. So there's always just little things that people can do, and I find a lot of our investors like want to support in other ways and love that we keep giving them ways to be involved.
Well, I actually think that's brilliant, and I've dealt with a lot of different companies, and I'm going to turn it a little topsy-turvy here. One of the things that people want, not one of the things, they say the thing that fills people's hearts and souls more than anything, really comes from Blue Zone type of thinking, is belonging. And I think that you're probably getting some of that in what you're talking about, and it's a great way to look at it. The way you just said is, instead of looking like, oh my God, I got 50 on the cap table I got to take care of, and they all have opinions, and they're not, you're actually giving them a chance to be part of it and engage in it. And the biggest thing is it becomes an economic and social impact at the same time, because it's not sustaining if it's not economically viable for everybody, but it's certainly more viable economically and feeling good-ish, if you will, by the impact that you're making. Did you have to explain what the fruit was to everybody?
Oh yes. So much
That you
education. I
did.
mean, we did a ton. Prior to COVID, we used to do like 400 demos in Whole Foods per year alone,
Well,
just in Whole Foods. So we have now turned more into digital marketing and trying to do more digital education. But it is, a lot of people don't know Moringa is. We're now starting to add in other superfoods like baobab and hibiscus and other really cool, climate smart, community grown superfoods. And so a lot of what we do is educate folks about why it's so good for them and why it's so good for the world.
yeah, because people I remember when you hear about kale, then you hear about acai, then you hear about this, and it becomes like, was this another trend or whatever? Um, so I'm sure you had to tell people what it was. I think, and maybe you can share this. I think the experiences and accomplishments you've had in the things we talked about before, correct me if I'm wrong, not only give you the confidence, but probably the credibility that you're just not some person that is bringing some fruit from Africa that they heard about, to sell. Another one's coming that's supposed to be the miracle fruit or something. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, we're like, we've been doing this for 10 years. It's not a trend because we've grown every year and we're not going away. But then you also think about, quinoa and chia and um, hemp seeds and so many superfoods that like people didn't use 10 years ago when chia was for pets and we'd never heard of acai and now in some ways they're like staples of a lot of people's diet.
No, it's brilliant. So we concentrate with our clients because they ask us to on how impact and talent intersect. Because great people want to go work where they can make money and have purpose at the same time. And really great leaders of companies want those people because they can keep going. Um, Share with us a little bit about what tech you have or what tech you use, or is AI coming into it in the future? And what kind of team or teams have you built that make you successful? Because you can't do it all yourself. I know you're superwoman, but you can't do it all yourself.
No, definitely not. And I'm a big fan of, hiring folks who are smarter and wiser than I am in many ways. Like we really try to hire up. And I think, we have a lot of really cool technology behind our business. My co-founder is actually a software engineer. He's like a master of all things NetSuite, Google Sheet integration. Like he does, use some kind of AI stuff within that. So a lot of our operations work because he makes them really streamlined and efficient. And we're able to have like a pretty small, core team and then have a lot of, part-time or other
Sure.
farmers, you know, manufacturers, sales reps, who are all part of our ecosystem.
So you always hear coffee seems to be the one that comes up a lot, and we do a lot of work in food security and farming and farmers and whatnot. What's the relationship you have? And it sounds like it started when they told you to try this. What kind of relationship do you have with the farmers, the ag people in Africa, so that people know you're giving them the best and they're happy too?
Yeah, I mean, we really think of it as a win-win partnership where, they give us incredibly high quality product. We work with them to figure out how much they can supply us, what's the price that makes sense for us, makes sense for them, and really think about, how we can make these win-win for the communities as well. So we do a lot of small community grants, like we've got local schools where we funded rainwater harvesting. We've put solar on like a local birthing clinic. Just a lot to make sure that we're having a real positive impact that's felt throughout the community.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear. Just because it's the right thing to do, and it's good for business too, but it's the right thing to do and everything. What's the goal now for the future? What's the look forward to growth and you're not only making a social impact, you're making an environmental impact, I would think also, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we do a lot to plant a lot of trees through our supply chain. That's the cool thing about sourcing tree crops. Moringa is a leaf. baobab, the fruit, they all come from trees. And as I'm sitting here in this food forest, I'd say that this year for us is really thinking about what are other climate smart, community grown, super nutritious crops that haven't made it to the US, but could do so much good for our health and so much good for the communities that they're sourced from. So we're really excited to continue to bring new ingredients into our product portfolio. We just launched a bunch of new products. I have to say, our new sour gummies at Whole Foods nationwide made with baobab, delicious.
Okay.
So we've got a lot of really cool products that are coming out, all formed in partnership with our suppliers.
And I know you mentioned Whole Foods. Remind me, where is it at?
So we're in 11,000 stores across the US. So we're in Whole Foods nationwide, Sprouts, Walmart, and then quite a few other small natural stores as well. So and Amazon, of course. Yeah, we aren't big in Canada yet, but hope to get there soon. Better concentrate on making sure we nail it in the US first.
Well, I live in LA, so you'll have to handle the Canadians yourself now, which are, even though I'm from Canada, but Canada's pretty healthy community. They would love this. They would love this also. So I got to get myself some samples. I have a Whole Foods like 5 minutes from here, so
Oh,
I got to go
yeah.
check it out. I got to go check it out. So no, this is it's super interesting, and it's congrats on taking the initiative to get involved globally and in policy, and all that early. Because I think it's the experience, and because I've had some of that too, the experiences that you get, I think are incredible for any young person to get, and then really make an impact later. So way to go on that. I'm sure your parents think it's all because of them not letting you watch TV, and stuff. So, but I have one last question, at least for
Yeah.
now, because we always have to keep the audience wanting more, which is what they say in LA, because that way you can do a sequel later, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
But in 2021, I don't remember when it was, but one client told me, he said, the year 2020 was the year that flew by slowly, and it feels like that, because sometimes 2020 still feels like the day before yesterday, and yet it's years ago, and it's hard to believe it was that long ago. With all that said, and now we're well into 2024, what are you most grateful for? And also, what are you most hopeful for?
Yeah, I mean, most grateful, I would say, to have the opportunity to build the business of my dreams. Like, not a lot of people get to do that. And it's pretty cool to be able to wake up and be like, yes, there are hard days, there are lots of challenges, but like at the end of the day, it's like I'm building something that I really, really believe in, which is such an honor. And I think, you know, what am I hopeful for? I hope everybody someday, is able to find real purpose in their work. I think that it makes us all better when we're able to do work that brings us alive.
No, that's really cool. Well, I'm grateful that you are a leader who cares, and I'm hopeful that your little kids cherish the time with your grandmother, your mother, their grandmother,
Yeah.
and also that they recognize what you and your husband are as role models for making things happen. And I think that's really important too. So thanks for being on the Leaders Who Care series and sharing all that. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Mark. I appreciate it.